Hi, welcome back to Surviving Alzheimer's podcast, Clarity, Courage, and Care. I'm Teri, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. If you're new to the show, welcome. This is a space where we can talk openly about the really messy, beautiful truth of navigating Alzheimer's disease, not just as caregivers, but as whole human beings, trying to hold on to ourselves while holding space for someone we love. And if you've been with me for a while, thank you so much for coming back. Your presence really matters here more than you know. Today, we're diving into something that might just change the game for Alzheimer's treatment. And I have to tell you, when I first started researching this topic, I felt that familiar spark of hope mixed with cautious optimism that's become very familiar to me over the last few years with Mom. Today, we're going to talk about oral Alzheimer's medications, pills that could do what infusions like Leqembi and Kisunla do now, but without all the trips to the infusion center. And before we go any further, I want to acknowledge something. If you're listening to this and you're already exhausted from the logistics of getting your loved ones to appointments, managing medications, coordinating care, I see you. And this episode might feel like a lifeline, or it might feel like one more thing of research to just have to deal with. Both reactions are valid. So let's talk about what's coming, what it means, and how to think about it, whether you're already on a treatment journey or you're just starting to explore options. Here's where we are right now with Alzheimer's treatments. And this is something I wish more people understood. For decades, and I mean decades, we have only had two categories of Alzheimer's medication. That's it, just the two. First, you had pills like Aricept, Namenda, or Exelon. These are symptomatic medications. They can help with memory and thinking for a little bit, but they don't change the course of the disease. They're managing symptoms and not addressing the root of the cause. Then, starting in 2023, we got disease-modifying treatments. Those are the infusions, Leqembi and Kisunla. These are anti-amyloid antibodies. What they do is clear amyloid plaques from the brain. They don't cure Alzheimer's, but they do slow the progression. They change the trajectory of the disease. But the problem with them, they're IV infusions. Every 2 weeks, you have to be at an infusion center for 30 to 60 minutes. Add to it the drive time, the wait time, the check-in time, and you're looking at a half-a-day commitment minimum. For Mom and I, it was manageable. We were lucky. I had an employer that allowed me to take 26 days a year off, which is, you think about that, and that was amazing. And so without that, we couldn't have moved forward. So I am forever grateful to Beaker Pharmacy for allowing me to be able to take that time off. So taking the 26 days a year off, so infusions every other week, is what it took to keep Mom in treatment. Most people, I would say 99.9% of the people out there, do not have an employer that will allow that. There are some serious obstacles that everybody faces, and I'm just thankful and grateful, and here I get all emotional about it, that we had that opportunity. Mom and I were able to build our routine around making that work. And I know that it will not be that easy for most of you. I hear that. Every week I hear from families who live hours from the nearest infusion center, who can't take that much time off of work, or who don't have transportation, or their loved one that's experiencing memory loss simply cannot sit still for an hour long or even a 30-minute long infusion. That's where the hopes of an oral medication come into play. I want to be really clear here, though. Right now, no oral anti-amyloid medication is FDA approved. We are not there yet. We just now got the auto injectors, right? And that mom was in that study trial for 2 years, a year before the FDA even heard about, well, no, it was a year before the FDA even had a chance to approve it, and then the approval took another year. So best case scenario, we're at least 2 years away from oral medications being approved. So there are several late-stage clinical trials, and the data is promising enough that researchers believe that we could see approval within the next few years. What does that mean for you and your loved one? It means that this is the time to pay close attention to those clinical trials, to educate yourself, to understand what is coming so you can be ready when they actually hit the market. Here's one of the things that I've learned through Mom's clinical trial journey. The families who do the best are the ones who educate themselves early. They're the families who ask questions before they're in crisis mode. They understand their options before they're desperately needed. So let's talk about how these medications actually work. At the core, they're doing the same thing that Leqembi and Kisunla do. They're targeting and clearing amyloid plaques from the brain. Same goal, but there's a different delivery method. Instead of receiving a monoclonal antibody through an IV every 2 weeks, you would just take the pill at home daily, just like you would take a supplement, easy peasy. The science behind getting these drugs into pill form is actually really remarkable. The challenge has always been getting enough of the medication across the blood-brain barrier in oral form. IV delivery is super direct. It goes right into the bloodstream with immediate access to the brain. But researchers have been working on this for years, and they're figuring it out. And you know what? When I first heard about this development, my immediate thought was, where was this 5 years ago? Because to be honest with you, and this is something that I don't talk much about publicly, there were times early in Mom's treatment when getting to those infusion appointments was almost impossible. If I didn't have my sister to rely on, we would not have made it. There's no way. Then we had, it was in 2021, early 2021, the Dallas area, all of Texas actually, but particularly the Dallas area, got hit with a couple of really bad ice storms. And if you know anything about Texas drivers, we do not drive in ice. And those of us who do are just, they're making mistakes. So we had horrible, horrible storms. Most of the state lost electricity. The temperatures were down close to a zero. And so we had some really significant issues. I was scared to death of driving because you might think that you have a four-wheel drive vehicle, but that does not mean that you have four-wheel stop. And I lived in the Northeast long enough to know the difference between the two. But we couldn't miss her infusion. The schedule matters, consistency matters. And I drove her to that appointment in my little Honda, and I was white knuckled the entire time. Mom was more anxious than I was because she doesn't even like being on a freeway, much less out in the snow and ice. So by the time we got there, both of us were exhausted before the infusion even started. If we had had a pill option, that day would have been completely different. So when I think about oral medications, I'm not just thinking about the convenience of it, though that matters. I'm thinking about access. I'm thinking about the dignity of the patient, about reducing barriers between people and treatments that could change their lives. So let's talk a little bit more about how the oral medications could mean, or what they could mean in a practical and in everyday terms. You would never have to go to an infusion center if all you had to do was take a pill. And this is the big one. You take your medication at home on your schedule, no coordinating with an infusion center, no sitting in a waiting room, no needles. That's a big one for a lot of people. For someone who's anxious about medical settings, and Mom did develop a little bit of white coat anxiety during the trial, this can be transformative. So you're looking at easier scheduling. You're not trying to block off half a day every 2 weeks. You're not coordinating your work schedule, caregiver schedules, facility hours, weather. You just take your pill in the morning with breakfast and you're done. There is also the potential for significant cost savings. Now, I say potential because we have no idea what the insurance coverage is going to look like. But by eliminating facility fees, nursing time, infusion supplies, that will reduce overall cost. So we'll have to see how that really plays out. This is the one that I see from my point of view having the biggest impact, is it's less time off for the care partners. You have to be retired or have the most patient employer on the planet to be able to take 26 days off a year. Or even if you're on Kisunla and you only go in once every 4 weeks, that's still a day off a month. And most people do not have 12 PTO days that they can sacrifice for this. So this is significant. I hear from most caregivers that have a loved one taking this treatment that they burn through their PTO, when after going through these treatments, they need the PTO more than ever. It's hard to juggle the infusion appointments with their job responsibilities. An oral medication will not eliminate the role of a care partner, but it does reduce the logistical burden. Where this is also going to affect people is it provides greater access for rural and underserved areas. This one keeps me up at night. I think about the families in the small towns, in the rural areas, places where the nearest infusion center is 3 hours away, 4 hours away, or even 6 hours away. I have one lady that I'm working with that lives in Canada, and she's working with a research center that's in the US, but she drives 4 hours each way, twice a month. She has to cross the border twice, well, 4 times every month just to get here. And that's not even considering when winter sets in. She started her treatment in it was April. And so there was still a little bit of snow, still a little bit of winter weather that they had to deal with, but nothing like what they're going to have to deal with coming up. These families deserve access to the disease-modifying treatment just as much as a family in any major city. Right now, geography is a massive barrier. Oral medications will change that. Not completely. You're still going to have to go for your MRI monitoring. You're still going to need to meet with your physician to manage your care, but the frequency of travel drops dramatically. That's not just convenience, that's equity. So one of the ladies that I work with, let's call her Paula. Her story is very real, and it's one that I hear versions of constantly. Paula lives in a really small town in Nebraska. She's 2 hours away from the nearest infusion center that offers Leqembi. So 2 hours each way, 4 hours round trip. She got her diagnosis about a year ago. She was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's, and her doctor recommended that she consider Leqembi. She did have the positive amyloid scan, so she qualifies. Her insurance would cover it. But one of the things that she said to me one day was that, I want to do this. I understand that it will slow the decline down, but I'm having trouble wrapping my head around driving 4 hours every 2 weeks. Her husband works. He cannot take her to the infusion center. He can't take that much time off. And if he could, then they would have to find someone to help watch their grandkids. So for her at that time, it felt impossible. They worked it out, but she's the rare case that they were able to work it out. Paula isn't giving up. She's being realistic about her limitations. Those limitations are not her fault. They're systemic. But here's what happened next. I told her about the oral medications that are in development. So she is starting the infusions, but with the hope that she will be able to move to the auto-injector soon, and then eventually to the oral medications. With these oral medications coming out, you cannot wait for them to come out. Your window for Alzheimer's treatment is very small. I cannot overstate this enough. You cannot wait. If you are in the window of opportunity, you must find a way to start the treatment as soon as possible. You can't wait for the holidays to be over. You cannot wait till spring. You cannot wait for these oral solutions to become available. I'm going to say this clearly. If you wait, you will most likely decline past the window of opportunity. You will more than likely miss this opportunity. I am sorry to be this blunt. I know that for a number of caregivers and people experiencing memory loss, that you hear that and there are tears in your eyes right now. And again, I'm very sorry. But no decision is a decision, and it's a decision not to treat because the window is short. Let's talk about who might qualify for oral medications. The good news is that eligibility criteria will likely mirror what we're seeing with infusion drugs. You will need a diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's or mild dementia. It must only be early stage disease. These medications work by clearing existing plaques and preventing new ones. They're most effective when there's still significant brain function to preserve. Most people do not regain any brain function, so the goal becomes preserving what you have. So if we catch it early, we can preserve more. You will need an amyloid confirmation. You'll need a positive amyloid PET scan or I cannot never say this word, cerebrospinal fluid test showing amyloid pathology. This confirms that what you're dealing with is actually Alzheimer's and not another form of dementia. You will need to be in overall good health. You will need to be medically stable. You'll need to be able to attend regular monitoring appointments because even with oral medications, monitoring is essential. You still have to have a care partner, and this is non-negotiable. When you're going through this treatment, you need someone who can help tackle and track symptoms. They need to be able to ensure your medication adherence. They need to attend appointments with you, and they need to spend enough time with you every week to be able to recognize the warning signs if something's wrong. The care partner requirement is not arbitrary. It's simply safety. When Mom was in her clinical trial, as you've heard me say 1,000 times now, I'm sorry to be so repetitive there, I went to the appointments. I filled out every questionnaire. I tracked every symptom. There were times, multiple times, when I noticed things she didn't. When there were small changes in behavior, moments of confusion or clarity, either way, confusion or clarity, both are important symptoms that need to be addressed. And we reported them immediately. Having a second set of eyes, that partner who knows you well enough to recognize the subtle shifts is critical. So if you're thinking about pursuing treatment, whether it's an infusion, the auto-injector, or an oral medication, you need to start building that partnership now. Talk to your care partner about what you're noticing, what you're experiencing, and practice that communication. It'll make everything easier down the line. Now let's talk a little bit about the exciting part. I'm kidding. This is the non-exciting part. This is the risk and the monitoring requirements, because the truth that nobody likes to hear, but everyone must understand, oral medications will likely carry the same risk as infusions. The biggest concern is ARIA. ARIA is an amyloid-related imaging abnormality. It's brain bleeds, it's brain swelling that can occur if the amyloid is cleared too quickly. Most cases of ARIA are asymptomatic. You would not know that it's happening. And if you didn't have an MRI, you would have absolutely no idea that it was there. But in some cases, you will find symptoms such as headaches, vision changes, confusion, dizziness, and possibly even difficulty walking. In these rare cases, ARIA can be very serious. This is the part of the treatment that terrifies people, and I completely understand. Before we experienced Mom's ARIA events, I felt the same way. The idea that a medication meant to help you could cause brain swelling is very scary. But here's what I need you to understand. ARIA is manageable when it's caught early. And that's why the monitoring protocols exist. If you start an oral medication, you're still going to have to go through regular MRI scans that will detect the ARIA, likely before any symptoms appear. These are typically at specific intervals before treatment, during early treatment, and periodically throughout. You're going to have to track your symptoms. You or your care partner need to know what to track and how to report it immediately. Headaches that don't respond to normal pain relievers, vision changes, new confusion, dizziness, or balance issues. You're also going to need to get genetic testing for ApoE4. People who carry 2 copies of the ApoE, I can never say that one either, can I? The ApoE4 gene have a higher risk of ARIA. Knowing your genetic status helps your doctor adjust treatment plans and monitoring schedules. You've heard me talk about mom's ARIA events in the past. She experienced 7 ARIA events during her clinical trial. We caught it treatment. Was it scary? Absolutely. Very scary. I remember getting the call from her when she experienced her first ARIA, her ARIA H, and having her explain what she experienced. My stomach still drops a little bit just thinking about it. But when you know what to watch for, like we did, we had a plan. And with that plan, the system worked. Here's something else that I need you to hear and something that I need you to know. ARIAs are being monitored. You are not going into this blind. The difference between oral and infusion medications isn't the risk profile. It's the convenience of delivery. The monitoring requirements will be similar. The safety protocols will be similar. You're trading location, not safety. So here's where we are. Oral anti-amyloid medications are in development. There are several, more than 2, that are in late-stage clinical trials. If the data continues to look good, we should see FDA approval within the next few years. I would say 2 years at a minimum. I think it's really more likely that we're about 3 years away. So it's coming, but we're not there yet. These medications right now are not available outside of a clinical trial. And even when they are approved, there will be limitations that you'll need to keep in mind. We do not expect them to work faster than infusions. The benefit is convenience and access, not speed of plaque clearance. They're still going to require the monitoring. You're not eliminating MRIs or doctor's visits. They're just reducing the infusion appointments. The side effects and the risk will likely be similar. ARIA risk exists whether the medication is delivered by IV, autoinjector, or pill. Availability will depend on FDA approval and insurance coverage. Just because something's approved doesn't mean it's immediately accessible to everyone. And that's frustrating. But the FDA is a government institution, and government moves slowly. Because we've seen this with Leqembi and Kisunla, FDA approval is just the first hurdle. Then we have to go through insurance approval. Then there's prior authorizations. Then there's finding the physician that will even prescribe it. Then you've got to find an infusion center that will offer it. So the system is complicated and it can be exhausting. And I worry even more that once the oral medications are approved, accessing them won't be as straightforward as it should be. So this is what I choose to focus on for now. Progress is happening. The landscape is changing. We have more options today than we did 2 years ago. We have even more options. I'm just stuttering over this because it's frustrating, but it's positive. We have more than we did 2 years ago. We'll have more options 2 years from now. The trajectory matters. So what do we do with this information? Stay informed. Keep watching for clinical trial announcements. Follow Alzheimer's research news and know what's in the pipeline. Second, talk to your doctor. If you're curious about whether oral medications might be right for you or your loved one when they're available, start with that conversation now. Get baseline testing done now. Establish care with a neurologist who stays current on treatment options. I would say only about half of the neurologists in this country make an effort to stay up to date on these medications. And because they're neurologists that treat many different types of neurology. So keep that in mind. You need to make sure that you find the right specialist. Third, and this is big, I encourage everybody I talk to consider this. Consider clinical trials. If you want access to these medications before final FDA approval, and if you meet the eligibility criteria, clinical trials might be an option for you now. They're not for everybody, but they are worth exploring. Fourth, don't wait. If you or your loved one is experiencing memory loss, you need to start yesterday. Even better, the day before yesterday. Because here's what I learn more and more every day. Hope is powerful, but hope without self-care and education is just fantasy. You can hold space for the possibility of new treatments while also living your life today. You can be excited about what's coming, but you need to take advantage of the window that's available to you now. Mom's Leqembi treatment changed our lives, not because it reversed her Alzheimer's. It hasn't. She still has Alzheimer's disease, but because it slowed the progression enough that now we get to enjoy more time. Even yesterday, I got to spend a few hours with her. We have really good days, and we have more moments of clarity than we had when she started the medication, and certainly more moments of clarity than we would have had if she hadn't done anything at all. If oral medications can do the same thing for families who cannot access infusions, that changes everything. And I see us moving in that direction. So stay informed, stay hopeful, and keep showing up for yourself and for your loved one. If you're wondering whether you or your loved one might qualify for current treatments or upcoming clinical trials, I can help you with that. At Memory Treatment Advisors, I work with families to access eligibility, understand the pros and cons of different treatment options, and prepare for the realities of disease-modifying therapy, whether it's an infusion, an auto-injector, or eventually a pill. I do offer free 10-minute clarity calls so we can go through your specifics and figure out what the next steps are. You can book that appointment simply by going to memorytreatmentadvisors.com. Find the schedule button and click that. You can do that, and the link will be in the show notes below. The easiest thing is just to give me a call. My number is 214-924-6102. If you're not ready for that call, but you want to stay connected, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast and sign up for my weekly blog. Every Tuesday at 9 a.m., I release a new blog post. Every Thursday at 9 a.m., this podcast drops, so it will always be the same topic, just different perspectives. The blog is more general information, something that you can print out and take with you. The podcast, this is where I have a chance to get more personal and share what Mom and I actually experienced. So speaking of staying informed, next week we're tackling something that intimidates most people, but it doesn't have to. It's clinical trials. We are going to walk through and demystify clinical trials. What are they? How they work? Who qualifies? Where they are? What participation looks like day by day? And most importantly, how to know if a clinical trial is right for you. Here's the thing, clinical trials aren't just for researchers. They're for patients. They're for families who want access to cutting-edge treatments before they're widely available. Mom's Leqembi journey started in a clinical trial in 2019. We couldn't imagine what we were really signing up for. We had a lot of hope, but we learned as we went through the process. Next week, I'm going to break it all down so you don't have to go through that. It'll be called Clinical Trials Demystified, and that'll be Thursday at 9 a.m., so don't miss it. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for showing up, for learning, for doing the hard work of staying informed, even when it's overwhelming, and it does get overwhelming. You're not just surviving Alzheimer's, you're navigating it with clarity, courage, and care, and that matters. If this episode helped you today, I'm going to ask you to share it with someone who might need it, who might need these details and to hear some of the hard truths. Maybe someone who's struggling with infusion logistics. Maybe it's someone who just started to explore treatment options. The more people who understand what's possible, the better equipped we are to make the best informed decisions we can. So until next week, be gentle with yourself. Celebrate the small victories, and remember, you don't have to do this alone. I'm Teri, and this is Surviving Alzheimer's podcast, Clarity, Courage, and Care. Thank you.